It is a safety concern for trans women to share a female restroom. Can the agreeers...
Look, man, when people go to the bathroom, they're to do number one, number two, or check their fit and dip.
And so passability politics is really a thing in our trans community, especially when we come to the debate of restrooms.
Well, you can say it's politics, but actually it's just real life, right? It's just about
Correct.
where you're able to assimilate to and where you're not. And I think one of the biggest problems in the trans community is the community by and large has seemed to reject assimilation and seems hell-bent on...
That's not true.
I think it's absolutely true, which is you see people talking about how you don't need to work on your transition at all to enter women's restrooms. And I think that that is so selfish. So it's so disregarding of women who may or may not feel uncomfortable.
But the trans woman experience is not monolithic. So who are we to police transness? Why are we policing other people's transness and how they show up?
We have to protect women.
Why are y'all policing though? That's what I don't understand.
You're using words that we're not using. It's not policing. We're listening to women, and if you have 50%, we won't say 50%, but if you have a large chunk of the population of women saying that they are uncomfortable with a certain thing, a good person leans in and listens.
Obviously, a quick rebuttal that people will bring up is, of course, some of the women who have been beaten up because they just use the bathroom. Now, obviously, these women are somewhat masculine presenting, but they are cisgender women, and to that I'd say, well, you kind of push the self-ID bullshit. This wasn't a thing until that thing came out and you had grown-ass predatory men identifying as women, right? It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, you created this problem. Obviously, the whole thing with passing privilege is so stupid. It's like, if you really are transgender and have gender dysphoria, your whole thing should be looking as much as the opposite sex as you should be, right? If you really have gender dysphoria, you should do your best to look at the opposite sex. If you don't, that's a you problem. That's not another people problem. Like, you're making people uncomfortable. You figure out a way to deal with it. At the end of the day, I don't know, this thing is just so stupid. It's not that nuanced. It's like, it's just not happening as much as conservatives and Republicans would like to think it is. And like, it's just, so stupid.
Right. This is a self-preservation issue, right? So if somebody's in the bathroom and they have a boner, that looks bad on all of us. And when people, when our community's not calling that out and not saying that this is wrong.
How many, I'm just, to your point, how many cases has that occurred?
It happens a lot. We see it's happening all the time.
No, I have to
there are Twitter accounts.
I'm sorry, because I just want to make sure the back and forth goes everywhere.
I mean, there's Twitter accounts with millions of followers that show this stuff multiple times a day.
I know what we're talking about.
And so we're showing that these types of things do actually cause harm to trans people. So if you're looking at it at a trans lens and to say, what are we doing? We need to combat that stuff and come together to combat that stuff.
It does not encompass the entire trans experience.
No,
and that's
right.
all I just want to say.
Yeah.
So Sarah brought up a really good point there. Unfortunately, the way the world works is that if something bad happens, like, it does sort of encompass everything about that particular community. That's why, like, Sarah and Blaire are right. You have to call out those predatory men who do that behavior, right? When the Uvalde shooting happened, right? Like, what happened immediately? Conservatives and Republicans were like, see, this is why we need to get rid of guns in low-income areas, and this is why we got to tighten our borders, right? It's like, bro, the guy was Mexican. He probably didn't anticipate, like, making all Mexicans look bad. Unfortunately, that's just the way, like, the cookie crumbled, and like, we all were looked bad because of what he did, right? That's why, like, when Lex Updog and Amber Heard were, you know, like, exposed for doing false accusations, right? It wasn't just a reflection of their character, it was a reflection of all women, right? Like, it made actual women who actually were victims of sexual assault look bad. That's why, like, if you're gonna do this shit, you have to understand this is not just a reflection of you, it's a reflection of your entire community and of your entire group, right? It's unfortunate, but that is just how the world works, right?
6 years ago, when I've transitioned almost 8 years ago, but 6 years ago, it was never an issue for me to use the women's room. Girls would literally drag me in there with them and say, girl, you need to be in our bathroom. And I was like, I felt uncomfortable back then. I don't pass. I know I don't pass, so that's a me problem. And I'm not gonna turn my fear of being attacked in the men's room into a woman's problem. It's still a me problem, so I need to work on myself. And it sucks. Does it suck? Yes, it sucks. I don't pass. I know I don't pass. But I still respect women.
I mean, first of all, just like, you know, I don't believe in God, but like God or Allah, whatever, you know, deity you believe in, you know, bless Jessica, you know what I mean? Like, this is exactly like the kind of people that we need, where it's like, it's hard to admit that you don't pass. And like Jessica said, like, that's her problem. She's going to do what will make other people feel safe, right? Unfortunately, like, if a guy, you know, probably sees Jessica in the bathroom, that might result in like something, an altercation. You know, hopefully I'm, you know, hoping like it doesn't result into anything.
I was born biologically female, and a lot of the things that trans women experience of violence in the bathroom is what I experienced as a child. So the reason why my education here is not necessarily to create an idea that I need to conform to Eurocentric standards. Myself, I'm a 6 foot tall trans man, size 13 shoe, so I don't fit into the Eurocentric standards of what a woman is, and I never did as a child. I was, you know, bullied relentlessly.
Okay, why the hell is Shane going into his entire backstory? Like, homie, we're talking about the prompt. Trans people, bathroom. Like, get to that, buddy. Like, I'm sorry, but like, I just don't care about your backstory that much until we get to that part of the prompt. Biological women do come in all shapes and sizes, and that is my whole thing, where it's like, black women, brown women are oftentimes seen as very, very masculine. But like the whole thing is, this was not a problem 6 years ago because we didn't have the self-ID bullshit. We didn't have predatory grown men taking advantage of the self-ID bullshit. You could still pass because you could still pass. Like, Shane, I don't understand what is so hard to understand about this. This is a self-fulfilling prophecy, my guy.
I support the transgender military ban. Agreeers?
I mean, I don't support the transgender military ban because I just feel like anybody should be allowed to join the military to defend their country. But, the military is just like inherently a disgraced place. I mean, you could have like a crooked left toe and like not be allowed to join because they need like people who are tip-top shape. So I don't know, I don't know. We're just going to hear the people speak and let's see if we agree on anything.
And when you're on, a very strict regimen of, if you're trans and if you're really trans, and we can get into who's really trans later because I'm going to say about that, but if you're going to be on hormones, right, you're not always going to have access to those drugs when you're deployed and when you're in those situations. That's why I say if you're, a line cook or something, if you're whatever, that's one thing. But if we're talking about combat, you're not exactly going to have access to your testosterone blockers.
And people always ask me, how exactly did Blaire White get so big? It's like, well, she's kind of the only one who makes sense out of the whole lot of you. And again, as much as I don't support it, the reasons that she gave were kind of correct. I mean, in a lot of places, it is not safe to be a transgender person, right? Especially like in the Middle East, like she said, right? Where like maybe it's not so easy to get your medication, right? So like it'll be harder for you to actually continue to pass. And if you don't get your testosterone or if you don't get your estrogen on time, complications can happen. So, she's making some points, right?
The problem that I feel that some
Well,
trans
you're using a
influencers are
metaphor for
disconnected.
something that's
That is not a
professional. They're gonna
metaphor.
speak in platitudes
That
the
is
whole
a
time. That's
tangible
what they're gonna do.
resource organization. Because this is where y'all's privilege come in. Because if y'all don't need
My privilege?
services,
My
from
content is a
trans-
resource.
If you do not need
First of
services
all,
from
ma'am, don't come for my
nonprofits
privilege.
that are trans-led,
Because
you have
I was raised by
privilege
drug
and you
addicts.
have
I have
access.
HIV.
I create the resources.
I would rather
I create
work
the
with
resources. My
detransitioners
content
than
is a
black
resource.
people. So we're going to work with detransitioners who actually need our help.
Okay, again, Jubilee never fails to get that one motherfucker who is just the most insufferable piece of shit to actually fucking talk to. In the men's rights versus feminism episode, again, it was the incel guy. In the anti-female feminists, it was Janelle, right? Blossom. You can't tell someone who was kicked out of their house at 15 and diagnosed with HIV at 18 that they have privilege. Okay? I don't know what kind of world you live in. We've all had hard lives. But for you to tell that person that he had privilege when he was kicked out of his house as a teenager and diagnosed with HIV at 18, like, how fucking disrespectful are you? You have to give respect in order to get respect. Maybe Blossom just doesn't know that. All I know is that she's like helping everyone out with the angry black woman stereotype, right? Like, you are encouraging that stereotype to the high fucking heavens, girl. Honestly, goddamn.
Do not interrupt a black trans woman when she's speaking.
You've
Let's be
interrupted
very
me
clear.
hella
When it comes
times.
to
Hella
when it comes
times.
to isms,
Did the interrupter just
again,
say,
if you
use
are
her skin
black,
tone to
if
say
you
you
are
couldn't
black,
interrupt
if
her?
you are black and
That's
trans
amazing.
and you want to go into the military, I am quite sure that my experience would not look the same as y'all's. And if we can't wake that up, then we're really being complicit.
They don't look at your race.
I don't think your
But you-
skin tone makes any difference.
Well,
As somebody-
yes, it does. Well,
as
but it
somebody-
doesn't.
as somebody who's
But it
serving in the
doesn't.
military,
For you to
as
tell a
somebody
black
who-
person
no,
that is so
as somebody who's serving,
problematic, for you
So
to
why
tell
do
a
you have
person
to
of
put
color
black in
here,
front of it?
because this is my experience and this is my reality. First of all,
has nothing
that
to
is
do
so
with your transness,
disrespectful
though.
to tell a person
I'm
of
gonna have an
color, a
aneurysm.
black person, how
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, so Blossom has never served in the military, probably never will serve in the military. And did she just cut off someone who actually served in the military, who was actually giving their opinion, who actually said that it's actually easier to be in the military in the trans ban, more safer than it was during Don't Ask, Don't Tell? Like, did she seriously just, like, tell a veteran to shut up? Hey, man, Blossom, I gotta tell you, girl, you got that black privilege, girl, because, like, anybody else who would have said that shit to a veteran, god damn, they would have been knocked the fuck out. Like, Blossom, I get the fact that being a black trans woman is hard, but that is not your entire personality, right? There are charities set up for black women for, it's just like, Blossom, you gotta get some awareness. You gotta be emotionally there. You gotta be a little bit more mature, girl. Oh my fucking god, Blossom has interrupted everyone. I don't know how many fucking times. Yeah, she has the audacity to say, don't interrupt a black trans woman when she's talking. I'm like, again, Blossom, why are you giving conservatives and Republicans so much ammo? God damn. Again, let's make this clear, right? She is giving them ammo. Their rebuttal is always, well, they're gonna get ammo either way. Look, there's a difference between Ben Shapiro bitching about the Barbie movie and Hassan Piker saying that America deserved 9/11. Blossom is willingly giving everyone who is transphobic so much more ammo. She is literally giving everyone who is racist so much ammo because she is doing her best to, like, show off the angry black woman stereotype. Like, Blossom, girl, you gotta get some social awareness.
keep it cute, girl. Keep it real cute.
Oh,
Your
that's
bodyguard's
inappropriate,
outside,
but the rest
keep
of
it
shit
real
isn't.
cute,
Okay.
ma'am.
All right, so I guess Blaire did say something right. Apparently, Blossom right there did just say, you got a bike outside waiting for you, you know what I mean? I don't know, maybe she was just referring to the fact that Blaire's I was about to say husband, but I guess it's just like a life partner was waiting outside with Blaire just in case anything happened. I come to find out, apparently, Blaire White's Mexican. Weird, huh? She's probably no Salo kid though, so, you know, we don't claim her. But I was really hoping that we'd see the racial slur here. I didn't hear anything. But I will say, if Blossom really did call Blaire White a beaner or a frijolero, that would be very, very funny, especially on Hispanic Heritage Month.
Blossom screamed a racial insult at me.
Plus, let's be honest, the left would still try to protect Blossom, even if she actually did say that racial slur. Unfortunately, it looks like if you want to go and confirm it for yourself, you're going to have to go see the Patreon. Someone let me know in the comments.
It's okay for minors to get top surgery.
Really?
You guys waited on that?
That's pretty vile.
I agree with the caveat that there does need to be some sort of process, which there is, by the way, in place.
Yes, absolutely.
Sometimes there's a slip through. Yes, things happen because, again, as I said earlier, this is a big world. But to, again, negate people the ability to walk through a door that you have walked through, I'm going to say this again, and then close it behind you, is a little bit of a slap in the face for anybody who's seeking transition.
All right, this is the one that y'all probably been waiting for, huh? Okay, so no, I don't think you should transition any kid who's at least like 17, right? As kids, we all do different shit. As a kid, I remember I wore my sister's size heels because she would always bitch that like she couldn't walk or run in them, but that she had to wear them for work. And as a kid, I was like, oh yeah, I went in them and I ran with the high heels, right? Wait till they're actually grown up to where they can actually are mature, to where they actually understand the severity of their actions and what it means to transition. Because I'll give you a hint. Trans men, oftentimes, they're not told that they're going to menopause, which basically means you're not going to be able to have a baby. You're going to go through that stage where literally like all your eggs die out. And that's not something you're supposed to go through until your late 40s, early 50s, right? We just have to look at people like Jazz Jennings, right? She's had like, what, 11 revisions? That's because she transitioned as she was a kid, right? She was given estrogen when she was an 11-year-old. For her neovagina to work, she needed 11 revisions because she had a micro penis. They literally could not make like a hole deep enough for her. Then obviously the other issues that arise is the fact that if you put kids on puberty blockers before they actually reach maturity, or if you give them the opposite sex's hormone, then like the complications arise where they will basically be asexual. You know, they will not have that sexual desire and they will not, you know, be able to orgasm, which is like, again, something that Jazz Jennings like has struggled with. She said that, you know, like she doesn't really get hot and doesn't get hot and like she will never experience an orgasm because she was given estrogen as an 11-year-old before she was allowed to, you know, grow up and like get those parts of about her matured. So, you know, it's like, I don't know why you would want to cut the boobs off of a kid. I don't know why you would want to invert the penis of a little boy, but like, hey man, me personally, that sounds a little weird, right? Wait till they're 17. Wait until like they get an actual gender dysphoria diagnosis from like a few psychologists. It should be a conversation between the parents, the medical advisor, and the kid, right? Okay, so one, it's hard to take Alexander seriously because homie is just non-binary. They're not trans. They're not trans. They don't have actual dysphoria. If anything, they have body dysmorphia, but like gender dysphoria, they don't have, right? So it's like, it's very hard. It becomes very disinteresting to listen to someone who isn't educated on any topics and who has nothing to say, right? There's nothing more disinteresting than like watching someone talk about something that they don't really know about.
I also know that I was homeless at 16, paying my own rent, and left my home at 16 and had to live my life as an adult very early. So I was able to make those decisions for myself, but I think it's weird that others can't seem to see that I could make a medical decision for myself when I had to physically take care of myself.
All right, so Shane, that was genuinely a retarded fucking response to give. Like, the whole point is that kids aren't fully mature. I understand that you were in a bad living situation. Guess what? Kids need barriers. Like, by that logic, if you're going to let them do something that's going to scar their body for life, something that they might not even actually have, right? Like, at that point, why shouldn't I be allowed to get a tattoo? Why shouldn't I take out a loan at that age, right? Why shouldn't I smoke a bunch of cigarettes at that age, right? Like, kids need barriers because they don't understand shit. Like, Shane, I understand that you were working. Guess what? Emotional maturity doesn't equate actual maturity, right? Like, I'm sure you were paying your bills. Guess what? I know plenty of adults, they're fucking stupid because they never had those situations, right? They're fucking stupid retards who don't actually know any emotional intelligence because they don't have that. And they have the same thing as you, where they've been paying their own bills since 16. They don't know shit.
To believe that a child fully understands. I heard a few conversations about, well, if the child fully understands, they don't. They don't, because they're children. That's like how
21.
being a
Well,
child
like
works.
Like if a 17-year-old's like living as male for like 5 years.
The prompt was
it's
about
like,
minors, and
Yeah, but
12-year-olds
it's
are
a
getting
minor.
top surgery. So it's easy to say, well, if it's 17-year-olds, okay, well,
In my state, that's actually
there's a
legal
nuanced
age.
conversation about even 17-year-olds, I guess, because the age of consent in some places is lower, but that's not what's happening, right? It's 12-year-olds.
Well, absolutely right. There are more people.
Even
that are
among
doing that,
adults, we all
but-
do different things in
but-
our transition. Some of
correct.
us want bottoms, some of us don't, some of us want tops, some of us don't.
I
So
understand,
you
but-
need a lot of time as an adult to figure out what you want to do.
But see, the thing is, though, some adults don't even understand what they want to do.
Exactly,
So,
so
that's the kind
how
of
can a
thing.
child?
But
But
see,
I
a children,
wanna
that's,
touch
wait a
on
minute,
one
let's
thing.
not.
Okay, maybe I'm confused, but did Blossom literally just argue against herself? She literally just said, even some adults don't understand what they want to do. So then how the fuck would a kid understand? Again, like, bro, like, the whole thing just, like, in my mind, if you allow kids to, like, cut off their dicks and to cut off their boobs and transition, like, at that point, what couldn't they consent to, right? Like, I could see people lowering the age of consent in some areas. If you understand that much, then, like, at that point, why not just, like, allow kids to get tattoos, right? Like, I would have gotten so many stupid tattoos, right? Well, not so many, I'm poor as fuck. But you know what I mean? Like, at that point, why wouldn't you just consent to everything, right? And I know the rebuttal is going to be like, well, one is life-saving medical care and one is not. I understand that. But the whole thing is, if you're saying that you can consent to this life-altering thing at that young of an age, then you can literally consent to anything else. All right, Blaire, 12-year-olds are not getting top surgery. Is it legal in some states? Yes. Are they getting it? No. Right? This is like when Matt Walsh was on Joe Rogan and Joe Rogan was like, well, how many kids do you think are actually on like the opposite sex's hormones or puberty blockers? And like that dumbass Matt Walsh was like, oh, well, millions. And it's like, retard, didn't you just do a documentary about like what is a woman? You fucking idiot. It's like, at most, it's like a few thousand. But like, do you understand that like the population of the US, do you understand that that's like a super, super, super small demographic of people, right? Like, dumbass.
Why I'm against it is because, like you said, the children need to go through the proper steps, the parents, the doctors, but in the state of California, if you, as a parent, tell your minor, no, you're not getting this, I'm not affirming your gender, I'm taking your kids away, and California is going to raise your kids for you. So how's that?
Canada too.
That's not right.
I just, again, I don't understand this obsession with other
Obsession.
people's children.
It's about caring about kids.
I'm obsession. The obsession with the conservatives about other people's kids. If it is your child, it is your choice what you do with your kid.
Again, Jessica brings up a good point, right? Like, that's why, like, I remember I was watching Lynn Saga, the fucking dumbass, and like her whole thing with her parents and letting her transition, right? Where she bullying the parents, and in my mind I was thinking like, you fucking dumbass, do you not understand that in California, if you don't affirm your child's gender, like the state can take them from you? The only people who I know who wouldn't like talk this shit is like people who haven't like raised like nieces or nephews, or people who just don't give a fuck about anything and are just ideologues like Lynn Saga, where it's like, you do not know the pain of having like something that you raised taken from you, right? And the whole thing again, like with Luca, is just like, Luca went through such a traumatic past, so her parents were just trying to do something to help her alleviate that, right? And again, the fear that the state would take her child, and like, we all know the foster care system is fucked. Again, just the whole thing with Alexander, I'm like, bro, you're not trans, you're non-binary. Like, it's so disinteresting to listen to you because you don't know what you're talking about because you don't have that lived-in experience, right? I would not bring in a white guy to talk about Mexican struggles, right? Like, he might know a little bit, but like, he hasn't been through that struggle. He hasn't been through any of that, like, or any of the culture, anything about being Mexican, right? I would not bring in a Caucasian male to talk about that, right? I would bring in Hispanic people to talk about that.
Just to talk about someone who's at 16 and their level of consent in the state of California, from my understanding, someone who's 16 can also drop out of high school, which would severely affect their life. And they have access to that decision if they want to, because say they want to get into the...
Shane, you're a dumbass. The difference between someone cutting off their parts and someone dropping out of high school is the fact that they can go back and finish it. Not only that, but they can get their GED, which in some places is not as good as a high school diploma, but it still means that you passed high school. Like, I don't know who the fuck is this Shane guy? Okay, Shane, I'm happy that you have that level of consciousness at 16. Guess what? A lot of people don't, right? On the more extreme angles, you have people like Richard Spencer, white separatist, right? A year later, my man did a full 180, right? He had been like this his whole life. You really started to see the actions of what he did, and he made a full 180. He is a Democrat now. He is voting for Joe Biden, and he advocates for left-leaning policies more often, right? Like we saw it on the No Jumper podcast. A man who was so beholden to his belief. Like, Shane, by your logic, Richard Spencer would have never been able to change, right? Like that. Then that's just my exact point, where like people are always going to be able to change. Even with Alexander, like my man will explain later, like homie was super conservative until he found the, you know, like the liberal people.
Non-binary should not be considered under the trans umbrella.
Let's go, girl.
Which was a medical process, and it defines something very specific. So for me, when I hear that non-binary, which, if I'm to understand correctly, means that
androgynous.
Right, and it means you identify somewhere in between male and female. That's not what a transsexual is.
The definition of a trans person is somebody whose body has been altered, or somebody who identifies as a different gender whose body has been altered by hormones or surgery.
And there's two genders, so if you want to say, you identify as a different gender, it has to be one of those two, which would make you a transsexual if you're actually trans. I think it makes about as much sense as saying that bisexual is under the straight umbrella. It's like, no, that's a separate thing. And I think there's beauty in being separate things. There's beauty in having your own lanes. And my concern is there's so much, clearly, as we see today, really heated conversations about trans people that when you start adding in queer theory, non-binary, it just makes it muddy, and the people at home, don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Like, if I'm actually being truthful, I see non-binary more as a political movement than I do a gender ideology. If you want me to use they, them pronouns, I'm a fuck up sometimes, but like, that's on me, right? Like I'll try to get better, just know it doesn't come out of a place of malice.
It's just, if sex is a binary and you're neither of those, then you're not trans.
Hello. I mean, you're
because-
appropriating a medical condition. That's what you're really doing.
I exist. I am proof that non-binary people exist and that it is a thing. And because I'm sitting right here in front of all of you, I'm a real person. This is my experience, just as yours is a trans experience. That as a trans woman, as a trans man, or as whatever. But I'm not here to belittle your experience or to tell you that you don't exist. And that's the difference between you and I, that you're trying to cancel you. And when I say you, I'm talking about conservatives. And maybe it is you. You're part of the thing. You're part of the thing.
Here's where I get to interject because there's a lot of things said about
Stop
me.
addressing her and just talk to everybody.
But what is your dysphoria?
Well, there was some things. I'm going to let you. Okay. So another complete, I don't want to say the word lie, but I guess that's what it is about what I've said here, right? I never said you don't exist. So we can add that to the long list of things y'all have said. I've said that I didn't. We know you exist. You're here. You're not fictitious, right? My point is you're different than me, and I don't even think you deny that, but yet when I say it, it's an issue, right? The same way that he said he can't take that off, you can, right? It's different. At the very least, it's different. And when we have a community that there are so many categories, demi-girl, demi-boy, astrosexual, all this shit, but y'all can't fathom that maybe that would be a different category than what I am when we have such different, as you keep saying, and everyone keeps saying, experiences? It doesn't make sense. A bisexual is different than a gay man.
It's like when white people tried to colonize every Hispanic and every Latin American person by using the term Latinx. And it's like, motherfucker, we don't, like, just because we're brown and speak Spanish doesn't mean we're, like, the same, right? Like, and it's funny, too, because it's like, if you speak to most Hispanic people, they all hate each other, right? Like, in terms of, like, me getting called slurs and shit, it was not white people. It was Dominicans. It was Puerto Ricans, right? It was Cubans who were calling me frijolero growing up, right? It was not the white man. It was other Hispanic people, right? And even then, it was just like, we already have a monolithic term, which is Hispanic or Latino if you're in Latin America, right? So it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, you can try to colonize us with words, but it's just not going to happen.
Can I ask a question? I just actually want to ask you a question. What is your dysphoria, though? Because gender dysphoria, or sex dysphoria, as I would rather call it, is an uncomfortability between my secondary sex characteristics. Not just what I wear on a daily basis, because masculinity and femininity doesn't have anything to do with being trans.
Very good point by Sarah. Again, Sarah's like the most intelligent person. You know what? Go give Sarah a subscribe, honestly. But like, honestly, yeah, like what Sarah said, like non-binary, it's just oftentimes it all just boils down to stereotypes, right? Oh, I didn't like wearing these dresses, or I didn't like playing with girls' toys or boys' toys. That doesn't make me non-binary. Like by their logic, someone like Prince would be non-binary in my eyes. This is like when Rachel Dolezal coined the term transracial and tried to be included in black people's conversations when she was a white woman. This is like when Ollie London tried to be trans-Korean. In my eyes, these two are the same things.
But that's not true. But that is not true. You can have dysphoria without having to be dysphoric about your sex parts.
But what is your
you
dysphoria?
Can have dysphoria
What is
about
your
anything.
dysphoria?
Straight cis women have dysphoria about their breasts all the time. They get breast augmentation.
It's not dysphoria.
That doesn't mean that I'm not dysphoric about certain things.
A lot of non-binary people claim that they have gender dysphoria, but it's like, no, dude, you just have body dysmorphia. Even with like Lynn Saga, the bitch I covered in the last video, right? Like with her chest, I'm like, girl, you just got some body dysmorphia. Go get yourself like a breast reduction, right? It's like, you're not transgender. You're non-binary, but you're not transgender.
Too, there are non-binary people who have different sexual orientations. Let's also name that too. There are so many layers of nuance that we could really get to when it comes down to the root of what being non-binary is.
But what's the definition?
That doesn't make them trans.
Okay, why the hell is Blossom arguing for the team? There are non-binary people who have different sexual orientations. Exactly. You're kind of arguing that non-binary means nothing. How exactly do you not see yourself as a man or a woman, but you still identify as straight or as a non-binary lesbian? If you don't see yourself as either, how can you still identify with that? That's even one of the things that confused me with Demi Lovato, because her boyfriend calls her his girlfriend. And I'm like, wait, aren't you fucking non-binary? Like, how the fuck does this work? Blossom, you gotta stop arguing for the wrong team, okay? Again, just how hard is it to say that non-binary is valid, but that it is not trans? It really isn't that hard to say. You can be non-binary, but that doesn't make you transgender. Just because someone has similar experiences doesn't mean that they're the same as you, okay?
Again, when I go out, I can't like take my beard off, girl. It's not coming off.
Right.
You know, unfortunately, you know, as much as I hate having facial hair despite being a guy, you know, like
Real.
it. Like, I can't go and reshape my body. I can't go and shave my Adam's apple down.
Laws, politics, access to medical care, and et cetera, while simultaneously we see that the idea of fitting into the patriarchal structures, the misogyny, everything that is kind of placed in us, I don't subscribe to that. I mean, all my life have been breaking the rules of what a gender ideology is just by my pure existence. I didn't grow up with the idea of knowing what trans was my entire life.
Okay, Shane, how fucking retarded are you? What the fuck does patriarchy and Eurocentric standards have to do anything with fucking like non-binary? Like, dude, we're fucking talking about non-binary being a part of transgender. And I'm not taking this clip out of context. This is pretty much all he fucking said all the time. Like, what the fuck does patriarchy have to do with being non-binary, motherfucker? Like, how fucking retarded are you? Like, dude, okay, maybe I'm just stupid. Because this is the same shit that Lynn Saga tried to pull with that whole liberal racism bullshit, but I'm like, okay, you can't just drop on truth bombs like this and not be ready to fucking, you know, back them up with some kind of evidence, right? Like when I say that, hey, Star Wars has like allegories for imperialist warfare, I have to bring up stormtrooper examples. I have to bring up the fact that George Lucas rightfully made it a warning on how a democracy can turn into a far-right fascist movement, right? Like I have to be ready with receipts. This guy's not being ready with anything. He just says shit to fucking say shit.
Like, honestly, I feel bad for Sasha, because he's the only one actually making any fucking arguments. The rest of the people on the liberal side are fucking retarded on every fucking front ever. Like, Sasha, good job, my guy. Everyone else, fuck off.
Alright, let's just wrap this shit up, huh? Oh no, this Jubilee video was a fucking disaster, alright? Everyone on the liberal side, it's weird, because Jubilee prides themselves on being very, very liberal, but the people they get for these debates are always so fucking retarded. Like, even with the black conservatives and white liberals one, that one guy who was a Hunter Biden fan, unsurprisingly, he's a Hassan Piker fan too. Destiny and other people have already pretty much said that he literally called the black conservatives bootlick, right? And this debate is no fucking better, right? I mean, Sasha was too passive to put in a word. Alexander is just non-binary, not trans. They're appropriating a medical condition. So it's just so disinteresting to actually listen to them. Blossom is somehow a perfect caricature of a left-leaning liberal.
Is it true that Alec guy was calling one of the black conservatives a bootlicker? Yes, but I think they edited that out of the Jubilee video. He was going so hard because one of the black guys said that he had 6 cop friends or whatever. I'm guessing he's like in a community where he's got like friends that are cops. And then the Alec guy was like, wow, you're such a bootlicker. Or he said something, I don't want to misquote him. He said something like that. But
all in all, this video was retarded and this video was stupid. The whole thing with Blaire White especially, where Blossom threatened her verbatim saying, I got bodyguard side for you. And again, the racial slur, which is a he said, she said kind of deal. So, you know, we don't want to say anything, right? But the fact that on her Twitter, she was like, oh, you can't be racist towards white people. It's like, you kind of can be. Okay, here's the thing. If you're doing a joke, whatever, right? Racism, whatever, right? It's a joke. But Blossom, you're on a political stage. There is literally no need to bring up being black and trans in every single debate. It's like me bringing up the fact that I'm Mexican just when we're talking about Star Wars or DC, right? If we're talking about Blue Beetle, cool, right? I can talk about my past. I can talk about how I really loved the character growing up. But if we're talking about Superman, what the fuck? You know that part where Blossom was like, actors can do that? I genuinely think Blossom is a paid actress. Because like, there is no feasible way that anyone in their adult life is this fucking mentally insane and mentally retarded. Like, Blossom, you willingly...
One thing that I'm always surprised by is the amount of cope that people will willingly go for to protect one of their own. Samantha Lux is a very popular trans creator on YouTube. I myself watch her videos regularly to get different perspectives on certain trans issues. But even in her video, she weirdly went out of her way to protect Blossom and all of the weird things the liberals said, the way that Blossom threatened her life, the, again, alleged racial insult that was thrown at Blaire. She has a hate boner for Blaire and like, get it, but at the same time, it's like, by not bringing up the egregious behavior on your side, you are willingly condoning their behavior. And judging from the comments, it seems that everyone else is also very much agreeing. And keep in mind, these aren't Blaire White, well, some of them are Blaire White's fans, but these aren't Blaire White fans. These are a lot of her fans who are calling this shit out. Again, I don't know what kind of world would it be okay to threaten someone's life, and I don't know what kind of world would it be okay to call someone a racial slur on Hispanic Heritage Month. But hey, maybe I'm just built different. Maybe even if I hate someone like Candace Owens, I would never go out of my way to call her the N-word or call her a bootlicker. But hey, maybe that's just me. Maybe y'all see it different. Me personally, I'm never going to insult someone based on their race. All in all, I'm kind of sick about talking about this kind of topic. All in all, this isn't really my specialty, even though I am commenting on it, but I'm just like, I'm so tired of these liberal racist pieces of shit like Blossom and Lynn Saga, who come in, say this kind of shit thinking that they're profound, yet they say it's some of the most racist shit I've ever fucking heard. At the end of the day, Blossom, you have to get better, alright? You can't just be doing the shit that you're doing, because you're making actual transgender people look bad. And it saddens me to say, but I grew up with a lot of black women who were forced to deal with the angry black woman stereotype. And the fact that Blossom is reinforcing it, after everything that a lot of other black women have been doing to combat that stereotype, I think it's fucking atrocious, and I think it's egregious. If you even look at the comments and on Twitter, there are lots of other black trans women condoning what Blossom has done. Samantha Lux is, she showed her true colors, willing to condone racism and, just blatant threats towards someone that she doesn't like. All this is going to do is just show the conservatives have a more level eye view. Hopefully Samantha Lux does a response on condoning Blossom's behavior or does something, because as of right now, I don't, it's like, bro, you can't just call someone a racial slur on Hispanic Heritage Month, allegedly.